I'm going to ask while we're waiting for Jim. I had an email from Angie Johnston this afternoon, and the city of Augusta is going to submit an application for moderate income housing grant funds, and to establish a rural housing incentive district to try and attract new housing to Augusta. And she emailed me to find out if I would be willing to send a letter of support from the college um, as part of their funding proposal. She sent some examples of letters that were sent when Lindsborg did the same thing in the school district, and they had a number of different letters. I talked to Ray, and he said it wouldn't be a problem, but if I write the letter on behalf of the board, and say that we support it, he said at least, run it past the board and say, are you okay with it? And make sure if I put your name in the letter that you're okay with it. Is that all right? Is that all right from you guys' perspective?
What's the proposal exactly again?
It's for moderate. It's the city of Augusta. API has been working with the city of Augusta to develop a project that would bring forward they would apply for moderate income housing grant fund, establish a rural housing incentive district. They've looked at, it says that the project has identified 26 to 33 lots in the Belmont Lake Point edition. And the city's the one that's applying for the MIH grant, and they just need support letters when they submit.
How are you?
If you had the shell, you could say, hey, we're gonna gut it, heating, electrical, plumbing. I mean, that'd be a great
Good idea.
thing for this.
There's some, some of those programs will actually build house.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, yeah, yeah,
Like Circle one time, they put a building out back and sheetrocked it. And then we came in and mudded it for them. That's
Uh-huh.
a little harder to teach
yeah.
hanging sheetrock.
You got it? Okay,
To connect
okay.
somehow. Can you get me connected to the,
You just have to go to Wi-Fi. Go to the Wi-Fi signal. Should be down.
oh, I put my
Pardon?
glasses on.
See the icon for
I think
Wi-Fi,
we're all a
and
little
it's
bit past the
even-
internet generation, aren't we? Of
Is it on your
doing everything
little
on.
arrow and pop that box up again? There you go. Do Matt? Do they do Grizzly Guest? Right? Yeah. This one? No, Grizzly Guest. And then try and connect.
I gotta be able to hit it with a hammer to work on something.
I feel that way sometimes, Shelby.
Oh, that's what Jim, and when he's at his house, and he always has to bring his kid up like, hey, fix it.
All day at the hospital. So I just came by, got my stuff.
That's
Just
what
doing
I'm
here.
On now? Your friend doing
Yeah, she's just gonna have some complications, it's terrible to see somebody that young without health issues. Okay, I'm just gonna
Okay.
hit the link. Log in.
Bill, I think you're up, okay?
Okie dokie.
Can you increase his view, Laura, so we can see him?
Can you see that?
There we go. Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys, with all of you. We use SharePoint to put all of our files on, to be able to share out to different groups. SharePoint really gives us an opportunity to track the documents, make sure the latest version is out there. But also when documents are changed, it tracks those changes as well, so that we have kind of a full history of that document and the data that's in it. Really, from an IT perspective and a security perspective, it allows us to be more focused on making sure that we've got, that we're providing accurate data. So it's about data integrity. Also, we've really done our best to try to eliminate the usage of thumb drives across campus. Thumb drives bring viruses, they bring malware, oftentimes, and quite often, unbeknownst to the people that have the thumb drives. And I can tell you that I've may have fallen victim to that a time or two in my life as well. So the benefit to this is that you're able to really make sure that the documents that you have access to are current and accurate documents. So our technology training department and I put together, Becca with our technology trainer put together this sheet, kind of screenshot form that I think all of you have maybe a paper copy of. I'm just going to do a quick review of it. SharePoint is a browser-based tool that you can access from your computer, from your cell phone browser, or you can even download an app to your cell phone if you've got an iPhone or an Android phone. So this document that's in front of each of you really just kind of walks you through step by step. From a computer, you just open your browser. You can really, it's browser agnostic. You can use any type of browser you want. And if you have a Mac, you can use the Safari, which is the native browser to a Mac. Once you get into a browser, you just go to office.com and you can click sign in and you use your Butler email address. I think all of you, your Butler email address is your first name dot last name at butlercc.edu. And then you hit next and you'll punch in your password, which I don't know what that is. So fortunately for everybody. And once you punch that in, you'll get to your Office 365 dashboard and you'll be able to click on SharePoint. You go to Board of Trustees, and once you get to the Board of Trustees, you'll see this Board of Trustees page that you guys have access to. Has all the files. There's over 2,000 files out there now, and it's growing every day. I know Dr. Kroll and Laura and the team are continuing to kind of do more data dumps out there to get you guys access to the stuff that you need. But under trustee files, then you just click on that, and it's all located down in here, all the different things that you can that are out there. And as you request more and more from Dr. Kroll and the team, I know that this is where it will end up. Again, you can, oops, wrong button. Also, Dr. Kroll has sent out a link to you guys, butlercc.edu.sharepoint.com, sites, Board of Trustees. If you go directly to that link, it takes you directly to the trustees site rather than having to go through the dashboard, which is up here. So those are a couple of ways to get to it from your computer. Additionally, you do the same thing from a cell phone. On a cell phone, you open up your cell phone's browser, you go to office.com,
I may not know it either.
you click sign in, first name dot last name at butlercc.edu, and then click sign in, your password, and you're there. It's the same site.
Just harder to read on your phone.
It is. I mean, I've got amazing vision, so it's easy for me, but the other thing that you can do from an Android, like a Google Android phone or an iPhone, is you can download the app. There is a Microsoft SharePoint app. If you just go into the App Store, so at Google Play or the Apple App Store, and you type in Microsoft SharePoint, it looks like this little symbol here that you see on the screen. That's the actual SharePoint symbol from Microsoft Corporation. You'll download that, and then you run it, and it'll have you log in one time. Then after that, you have access to your stuff. Make sure when you do log into your SharePoint from the app that you sign into a SharePoint online, not to a SharePoint server. We don't run the server on site. It's another advantage to utilizing SharePoint and Microsoft's Microsoft 365 is we're able to utilize storage in the cloud, which is cheaper for us to do, saving money. Once you get in there, you'll see your sites and the people that you have access to in SharePoint. I mean, it's an intuitive program. It's pretty straightforward, I think, once you get in there. I guess I don't. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You just got to log in make sure that you're using your username and password. And when you type in your username, you have to put @butlercc.edu. So that's important.
Hey, Bill, this is Forrest. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
can you configure it off a different email, or does it have to be the Butler CC email? The problem I'm running into is I've got other programs at work that are running in the background on Microsoft Office, and this forces me to log out of everything else I'm doing in order to log in with my Butler email, which means it happened during the
Forrest,
workday.
if the answer to that is probably, and so what we can do, so generally speaking, I'd say no, but if you're coming from a corporate domain, we can work with you and with your company to set up what's called federated services that allow you to connect with that corporate domain account, and it'll authenticate from your corporate account through forrest.roads. So I can get a hold of you at I can get a hold of you or have our security team get a hold of you, and we can try to work that out. It just depends if your company has federation set up or not.
Okay. Be great if we can.
And this is Doug, and it doesn't recognize my username at all.
We need to straighten that out because you've had problems with that before, right?
Yeah, so I need to look at your username. Dr. Kroll did mention that to me, and I was otherwise occupied today, so I apologize. I didn't get a chance to look at that.
It doesn't like D-Law, and it doesn't like Doug.law either. So
I'll figure it out, Doug, and we'll get a hold of you. I apologize. I meant to get into that today, and I was
no problem. No problem.
So the handout that you have that Laura printed off is what Bill kind of breezed through pretty quickly there, but it gives you the step-by-step instructions and gives you the screenshots and the arrows and all of that sort of stuff. So that should help you as well. Okay.
And I'm always happy to answer questions about it. Like I said, if and on the also on that document that you have is our service desk's phone number. If you run into a password problem, our service desk is available. I think 7 to 8 or 8 to 7, 7 to 8, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 5 on Friday. So, feel free to call and they can help you reset your password. There's a self-password reset tool out there as well. So,
And most of the time when you call the service desk, you're talking to our students, you're talking to our techies that have been trained and know how to do the stuff. And if they need to call in extra resources, they will. But you're very typically talking to one of our college students that's going to work through your technology problems with you. So they do a great job.
they do. We couldn't do it without them. So we're very, 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 very happy and grateful to have that group of techies and those students to help us out at the service desk.
Having password problems.
Bill, this is Lance. Is there anything that when you go into it that needs to be refreshed or anything? I know when I was trying to access it for the meeting, I had the older documents but didn't have the newer ones. And then about the time I text you,
They showed
they
up.
just like showed up 30
Yeah.
seconds later. Is there something that I missed doing to
Nope.
get the new documents available?
No, it just once you log back in, it goes back and re-queries the server to make sure it's got the latest and greatest. So it may have taken just a second, but no, there's nothing you need to do when you log in. In fact, if you're logged in and there's an Excel spreadsheet and Dr. Kroll's actually making changes, you can see the changes as she makes them if you're looking at that same spreadsheet. So it should all be live.
And everything when you get logged in, and see the board of trustees on the side, all of the folders are in that one link. We've just added different folders, and so if you open that up, it just lists everything right there for you. Okay. Okay. Well, again, let us know if you need additional help. Laura's really good at this stuff, and we can get you connected to the service desk if we need to, do that too. Okay.
It will not take 3 passwords.
It doesn't like your passwords, huh?
And, hey, Laura, down here at the bottom, they do have Tuesday the 22nd. And it's Tuesday the 23rd up above. So I assume that's.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. And thanks to Becca and whoever else helped put the little guide together. That's helpful.
Yeah, they do a good job getting documentation together. They do.
Yep.
Hundreds of pages a week of it. So
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's talk about strategic plan if we can do that. I kind of wanted to start out the document that you have in front of you. I will project. I'll put up on the screen here. I guess, Laura, I need to log into Zoom too, don't I? Oh, do you have it? Okay, will you put it up for me? Thanks.
I think I need to be over there if this is going to continue because I can't be on.
Well, you've got the hard copy in front of you too. We're just going to go down through the hard copy
Okay.
too. So I put a hard copy in front of everybody so you could look at that and kind of follow along. I kind of wanted to start out first of all with, just sharing our mission statement. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but because the strategic plan each year we build off of the mission statement, the mission and the vision statement. The mission statement is that the college exists to develop responsible, involved lifelong learners and contribute to the communities it serves. And it guides our work. It's what we do, and mission statements typically are pretty short, pretty concise, but it says a lot in it, and it can be applied in a lot of different ways. Our college vision statement talks about the desire for Butler to be the learning college of choice in this region, to engage students and other stakeholders in exceptional instructional programs and services that directly relate to their needs and help prepare them for success. So again, very focused on students and student success and what we do as a college to provide those opportunities in lots of different ways to help our students be successful and to contribute to the communities that we serve and that serve us. And so I guess I would enjoy just a little bit of conversation about the college's mission statement. We're not going to change it or anything like that at this point in time, but I think from a board perspective, it's important to have us hear just a little bit philosophically about how you believe that mission statement directs and guides the work that we do and the decisions that we make, both short-term and long-term as trustees. Because it certainly applies to the decisions that you folks have to make as well. So any thoughts on that mission statement? It's been in place for a while now. I think it was developed when Jackie was here, and it's remained because we feel like it still applies and it's still very appropriate. So any thoughts from you folks on the mission statement, college's mission statement?
You know, did we have this before now? And I
You're going to
just-
have to speak into your microphone again so that people can
Did
hear.
we have this document before tonight?
No, we just gave it to you tonight.
Then I
We're
really
gonna-
can't tell you whether or not I have any comments right now, but maybe after I look at it.
Okay, well, we're talking about the mission statement right now. We're not talking
I
about
understand.
necessarily the direct things that are on here
And I
quite yet.
appreciate that.
It seems fairly generic and a good idea for what we're trying to do.
Okay,
Yeah, definitely.
okay. What are you thinking, Mary Martha?
Well, and this is just me, you think we could change responsive to something else? To
Well,
meet
Responsible, it's responsible. Are you
Oh.
talking about?
the mission state or the vision statement? Butler will provide responsive programs.
Our visions, it doesn't say responsive in here. I see mission that says develop responsible, involve lifelong learners.
Where are you?
Do we have that?
Ensure student
I don't
success.
think I have it.
I don't
I'm not talking about this yet.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh.
don't worry about that yet.
Is it-
Okay.
What you said is very similar to what's highlighted in blue.
I'm just telling you what the mission statement
Okay.
is, okay?
Can you
We're
tell
not,
us?
we're not talking about this yet.
Okay, so tell me one more time.
The mission statement is that our college exists, Butler Community College exists to develop responsible, involved lifelong learners and to contribute to the communities it serves. Okay,
Yeah, I like.
Okay.
I guess this is a dumb question, but where is that rated in front of me?
it's not
It's
in
not.
front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
So is it on the website?
Oh,
somewhere?
yeah,
You gotta
it's on the
look at
website.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
I like.
Okay. Well, and we're not, we're not going to change it tonight. We're not really, it's just kind of an overarching, just a start to the conversation because the mission statement then is what we use when we look at our strategic plan too. Okay.
Uh-huh.
When exec council got together the very end of June and started our planning process, we typically always do a SWOT analysis. We talk about the college's strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. Again, before we do, start to dig into, here are the things that we feel like we need to do, or here are the priorities that we feel like we're faced with. And so when we did that SWOT analysis, I'll just kind of quickly give you a little bit of information about just some highlights of it. We talked first about our strengths. And these are internal strengths that we really believe that we have. We really believe that we have a really strong faculty development team. We have a great team of people that helps develop the curriculum and supports teaching. We have a really strong online presence that's been in place for a long time. And that technology was really, really important. And that online presence was important for us to be able to make that switch to remote in March pretty easily. Our people are certainly a strength. People that are very dedicated to our students and to the work that they do, very committed to the college, lots and lots of long-term employees that have been here a long time. We have obviously lots of strength in our academic programs and our completion rates. Our completion rates are increasing. Excellence in academics, no matter what modality we're teaching in, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's online, whether it's hybrid. And so lots of strengths in that way. We're pretty adaptable. Some of the weaknesses that we identified, and again, when we talk about weaknesses internally, just among ourselves and just within our Butler, one of the things, and some of these come up just about every year, actually, but one of the things that we have a tendency to do is to be a little bit risk aversive. We're sometimes slow in making decisions because we want to research things and we want to pilot things and we want to make sure we've got everything right before we, turn the key. So sometimes we have a fear of moving too quickly. We're going to continue to have technologies that we need. We know, even right now, we need additional technologies. Sometimes we use those technologies to help processes rather than digging in and changing those processes or really trying to figure out maybe why they aren't working for us, but we'll just use that technology to help us. You hear lots and lots of times organizations that have communication issues or concerns, and no matter how hard and how many different ways you communicate, lots of times people still feel like you could be better at it. And then we have physical facilities needs. We have a lot of buildings on this campus that were built in the 60s. So we've got a lot of deferred maintenance and a lot of older buildings, and so we have physical facility needs. Externally, our opportunities, or if we think of things from an opportunity perspective, we have an opportunity to adopt a mindset of more decisive decision-making and action. We have an opportunity to make our communication streams better in the way that we share information with people and communicate that information. We have a lot of opportunity that surrounds our whole culture of Butler pride and the things that we're really proud about and the reason that we love Butler the way that we do. We've got great opportunities to increase our business and industry partnerships and to strengthen those in so many different ways, whether it comes around because of internships or partnerships or support for programs, lots of things that way. And we have obviously tremendous opportunities to engage students in new ways now. We've all learned new things because of COVID. Partly, we've got thrown into that pretty quickly and pretty decisively. And so we've learned lots of new things in how we can do things differently and strengths that we can build on. So some of the threats that we identified, and again, a lot of these are external. COVID obviously is a threat, and all of the impact of what that means for us now and in the future. Finances can be a threat, whether it's state funding, whether it's taxes, whether it's concerns about student tuition and fees, all of those just lumped into one, finances. Enrollment is a threat, and we're going to see across the system, for the most part, most institutions are going to see some enrollment changes because of COVID. We identified lack of fundraising because our folks from the foundation, we haven't been able to get out a whole lot and have those great face-to-face meetings or those gatherings where you typically can engage donors. A lot of the conversations that happen at the state level and among committees at the state level, if you look at the Board of Regents, if you look at the higher learning or the Governor's Education Council, some of those committees and task forces that get together, there's not a person on those committees or those boards very often that have come from within a career in the university or a career in the community colleges. And it's not that they don't want to learn or that they don't try to learn, but they don't have anybody embedded that really understands day-to-day operations at the university level or the community college level. And so that could be perceived a little bit as a risk or a threat because you've got people making decisions for you that are pretty impactful, but maybe don't have the same experience. Apathy can be a threat. If we don't care about what we're doing, if we don't care about trying to be better, and that can be a threat to us. And then, of course, the continuing conversations that we always want to be aware of are the tax concerns and how we make sure that the tax dollars that the 18 counties provide to the 19 community colleges, that we're thinking about that and we're aware of the challenges that creates for the 18 counties. And so we use that SWOT analysis then to help us understand what our strengths are, what all of these things are, and how we can capitalize and how we can change and how we can move forward. We know that we're going to continue to see significant changes and challenges because of COVID, and we don't even know what those all look like at this point in time, but they're going to continue to face us as we move forward, whether it's enrollment, whether it's tax concerns because people aren't able to pay their taxes, state economic situation, families and students that don't have the financial means now to even make day-to-day living, easier for them. And so college and school oftentimes, can't be a choice for them. How we position ourselves with new partnerships and new opportunities to again serve students. We try every single day in our conversations to make sure that we're thinking about our students and how we help them be successful, and what do we need to do to support them. And so that's the really the a huge driver for the work we do is just the students that we serve. So that conversation always kind of starts off our planning discussions, and I felt like it was important to share our thoughts with you, so that you knew from our perspective kind of what we see day to day and operationally in our experience with the challenges and the strengths and the opportunities and things like that we understand. Anything from your perspective that you're kind of you were thinking about as we were talking that would be pertinent to add to that list, when we think about the college's strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats? Anything that stood out for you that maybe we didn't hit on at all?
It probably falls under one of the categories you mentioned, Kim, but I thought of competition in terms
Right.
of a threat. And maybe enrollment, that ties into enrollment because it's what might be driving enrollment, but
It does. And we did talk about that, and I guess I did kind of lump that in underneath enrollment. One of the changes that we've seen significantly over the last number of years, when the technical schools, as they were faced with a decision to either affiliate or align themselves with a university or another institution that was accredited, or seek their own higher learning commission accreditation. Some of them chose to go through that lengthy and comprehensive process to become accredited on their own. And part of the piece that goes along with that then with the higher learning commission is that if you're going to do standalone accreditation, then you have to offer your own general education requirements and your own, really your own coursework. And so a lot of us at that point in time saw a change as they started to offer comp and psych and soc and math and college algebra and those more general education types of courses. We started to see enrollment move away from us in some cases and towards those technical colleges, and we continue to see that today. There's a lot of, again, because there's a lot of institutions, there's a lot of competition for students. We're all trying to recruit the same students. And so enrollment and competition is very much, you can think of it as a threat. You can think of it also as an opportunity. How do we capitalize on that? How do we become more competitive maybe? I think my number may be off just a little bit now, but certainly 17 institutions of higher education in South Central Kansas, just in our area between public and private. Some of the private ones, so 17 it may be 15 now, because I think some of the private ones, a couple of the private ones have closed. But so a lot of competition for the same students, and a lot of the students in this area don't go very far. They want to stay in this largest urban area in Kansas. So,
Is there new things being done in terms of marketing to try to, from a competitive standpoint, to be out in front of more students in the
yeah.
right places and some of that? I think
yeah,
that's an
and
opportunity to
we'll talk
really-
about that a little bit when we get into this. But you know, all kinds of ways to use social media and geofence groups of students. You know, we've gone after the, you can buy lists of names and you can get access to information. For instance, students that have started at you know, K-State and maybe spent a semester there and then didn't go back. We can find out who they are and we can go after, and we can, you know, use social media and you know, try and recruit those students. We can recruit veterans. We can recruit, you know, different categories of students. And so there's a lot of effort now, especially with social media and some of the technology that we have to be able to do those things where you couldn't do them in the past. You used to be, you would do, you know, radio and TV ads and mailings and all those kinds of things. Those kinds of things are very expensive. And social media reaches more people now in different ways, and you know, you can utilize your dollars in a more strategic way. So yeah, lots of, you know, Kelly and her team in college relations and marketing are constantly flexing to, you know, to reach out to different sectors and be in touch with groups of students. And when we start talking about this a little bit more, we're paying a lot more attention. We've got the ability now, because of some technology that we have, we've got the ability to look at our data and our numbers in a different way and understand, you know, how many students are in our enrollment funnels, how many have expressed interest, and how are we moving them through the funnel, and how many are we converting from interest and clicks on the website to actually being enrolled and being students on campus. So we have a lot more data at our in our hands. You know, marketing does, and some of it comes through access on the website. And people that are on the website, they can see through the analytics how long they're on the website, what they're looking at, what they click into. So there's a lot of, you know, technology that assists in that work now that we do that we didn't used to have, you know, access to. So
Have they gone kind of away from traditional marketing altogether? And I just think from a different perspective, I've had a couple of donors that have commented that they'll hear about one of the other community colleges in the area on the radio, and they're typically and it's more not necessarily driving the student, but driving the donor
yeah,
through some of that traditional marketing as well, I think.
they still do some of it. There are certain times a year that they're doing it, and certain, you know, certain, and again, Kelly understands those cycles way better than I do, but the agencies that we use, the buyers that help us with those marketing buys, you know, understand that stuff really well. And so there are different times that we're on the radio and on TV in a broader and stronger way than other times of the year. So
Dr. Kroll,
Uh-huh.
I've been reading about an associate's of applied science versus just an associate's degree.
right.
I think, well, it looks very promising to me to go to that instead of offering an associate's degree. But you know it better than I do. It just seems like the core curriculum comes the first 2 years of an applied science degree than it does an associate's degree.
We have
Yeah.
both of those. We have
You do have-
Associate of Science and we have Associate of Applied Science degrees in lots of areas.
And what's the difference?
Well, the Associate of Applied Science for the oftentimes is more technical focused. It has a few less of the gen ed transfer hours than the Associate of Science. The Associate of Science is typically a transfer degree.
Okay.
But the thing that we're seeing now is that the Associate of Applied Science degrees will transfer on as well to a lot of specific institutions. So I think there's a little bit more of a blend, but typically the AAS degrees are the ones that have sometimes stackable certificates, but they're the ones that have a more technical focus oftentimes. But sometimes we'll have an AAS degree and an AS degree in the same area, because some students maybe want to go on for a 4-year degree, and some may want to finish up that 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree and go to work for a while or something. So
Thank you.
My concern a little bit with like chasing everybody digitally, it's at some point it's going to be white noise. I think a little bit to the students, because even now you get on Facebook or Twitter or anything, and it's this online university and this online university and this online university. And not to say a platitude or anything, but it would be cool if, like, I know our nursing program, like what's going to draw students here versus us trying to chase stragglers, you know, like this is what we're known for, come here because we kick ass at nursing, and be like, oh yeah, I got to go check out Butler. Something
And they
along
do.
those lines
They
we could
come to us
focus on
because of
too.
that very reason.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in other programs as well,
Yeah.
we could do that as well.
Yeah. Our folks spend quite a bit of time talking to the students. How do you want us to reach out to you? How do we connect with you? If we were going to try and, you know, recruit a friend or a family member, what would be the best way to do that? So they're constantly looking for those best practices and paying attention to what the students are telling us. So let's take a look at, Laura, if you want to pull up the document that you have in front of you, let's look at the strategic plan that we put together. And what I'd like to do is to kind of do this in sections and do some overarching stuff and not get hung up on trying to wordsmith things, or, you know, let's look at it in an overarching perspective to start off with, and then we can kind of drill down into some of the details. And so as you look at the document that's in front of you, we have 4 goals, okay? And they, again, have been pretty consistent for quite a while now. We have ensuring student success, and these are the ones that are highlighted in blue. Ensuring student success, investing in our employees' success, contributing to our communities, and then advancing institutional effectiveness. So on your handout, those are the 4 goals that are listed and highlighted in blue. And each time we update or revise our strategic plan, we very often then, we're going to change our priorities, or we're going to change our key performance indicators, which are the benchmarking kinds of things that we use to help us meet that priority. And that those priorities, if you look down through the priorities under ensuring student success, all of those in some way relate to helping us help our students be successful, okay? And so let's look at ensuring student success for just a minute, or just a little bit. The priorities that we've identified, and again, we're thinking about projects and things that we already have in the works, or things that we need to do, things that we have started that we need to continue to work on. A lot of these things are sort of ongoing. They may not have an end point, you know? And with a lot of these as well, you're going to see that we haven't identified the addition of brand new dollars to the budget. You know, there's a few of them on here that if we would do them, we would need some additional dollars. But a lot of these things, again, are already embedded in our workflows. They're embedded in people's work responsibilities. Maybe it's technology that we added, or changes that we've made in the last couple of years, and we need to continue to build on those things that we're already doing. And so as we look at our priorities under ensuring student success, and again, they're kind of overarching here, we want to focus marketing, recruitment, retention efforts to align with Guided Pathways approach to academic success. We implemented Guided Pathways a couple of years ago, which is a very focused process to help students see from start to finish, these are the classes that I need to take to get, you know, from point A to point B. Guided Pathways is the deans and the faculty spent lots and lots of time redesigning those curriculum packages around this Guided Pathways to save students time, to save them money, and to provide for them very defined direction for, here are the classes that you have to take. They still have electives and those kinds of things, but it sort of narrows that down for them. We want to utilize our program viability model recommendations. This is a new viability model that was used for the first time this past year, that helps us understand a lot of the components of the program. How much support is there from industry? You know, what's the enrollment? What's, what are the internal costs? What kinds of scholarship support do the programs have? So it's not just about dollars and cents, but it's broader based as well. And so we've looked at that and used that for the first time, and the deans now are looking at that again to revise it and update it. We want to incorporate appropriate tuition discounting and scholarship strategies to maximize student access and educational opportunity, because we know that cost is important and critical for our students. We want to invest in college-wide technology framework to support their student success. And then you'll see in both the student area and the employee area, COVID-related priorities, because that's just the world that we're living in right now, and we just have to pay attention to those. So if we go back up and look at the performance indicators then under ensuring student success, these are kind of the detail things. These are the things that specifically we're going to do to try to meet this priority. So one of the things when we think about focusing marketing, recruiting, retention efforts to align with guided pathways, one of the things that we want to continue to look at as we move forward is to research and develop new program offerings. What has COVID-19 taught us about technology and using technology? What business strategies or learning opportunities are out there now that have come to the surface because of COVID and because of remote learning and working? Are there demands in this area that are not being met by other institutions? Opportunities for learning for students. So we want to continue to look at that. That's kind of an ongoing thing, but look at that. We want to continue to execute the strategic enrollment plan. This is a pretty comprehensive plan that really, again, focuses on not just numbers and how many we have to get enrolled, but how we approach getting them enrolled, how we use the data to help us understand how to recruit students. We did a really comprehensive report a couple of years ago on marketing and enrollment, and using that, the results of that report that help us understand the age segments, the demographics of our students in a deeper way. One of the things that came out of that report was, the students at each of your sites are different. And so you need to build curriculum packages and degree packages for your students that are taking classes in Andover in the evening because they're working all day long. You need to build curriculum packages that are different for maybe your students that are on the El Dorado campus, because they're more daytime students because they're involved in fine arts or they're involved in athletics, and they need to have their classes done early afternoon so they can go to practice. And so that ClarisCorps report gave us a lot of really good information about that's embedded in the strategic enrollment plan and how we focus it again on students and their needs. Christy Streeter and Willow Dean spent a year, most of the last year, redesigning with the help of faculty and leads and deans, all of those curriculum packages. They turned a 30-year-old schedule of courses that had been rolled over every fall and spring and started from scratch all over again, and redesigned this entire schedule to more carefully reflect what students needed and when they needed it. When we talk about the program viability model, again, we want to continue to use that model. We've learned some things the first time around. You always, when you start something, you got to go back and look at it and see what the gaps are. What did it not tell us? What did it tell us that worked well? What do we need to revise? So we're going to continue to look at that. Incorporating appropriate tuition discounting and scholarship strategies. Some of the work that's significant work that's been done over the last couple of years is to embed more and more OERs so that we can reduce textbook costs for students. The OERs, online educational resources. And so with our OERs, there's been a great task force that's researched those and faculty that have developed them. You can buy them already made, or you can develop them from scratch, and we've done both. But those OERs can be loaded directly into the students' Canvas course shells. So when they log in the very first day, there's their textbook, there's their learning materials. And what we discovered was, instead of a student not going to the bookstore to buy their books because they didn't have the money, or they hadn't gotten their financial aid check yet, or they decided they didn't even want the book, so they weren't going to spend the money, or they were sharing with somebody, that textbook, that OER is right there in their course shell. And so they have access to it. They pay a fee as part of, part of the cost. But we're going to continue to embed more and more OERs, again, to try and save students textbook costs. There's a state initiative, there's a KBOR initiative that's looking at OERs as well, and our folks are involved in that. We want to analyze and revise the current scholarship format with recommendations for consideration for the fiscal year 2022. And some of this involves, looking at the grade point averages and looking at, do we realign dollars somehow? Do we change the number of scholarships that we grant? Do we tracking also the grade point averages of the students that are on scholarship, and how are we retaining them, and are they completing, those kinds of things. And then we want to be able to utilize foundation scholarships for recruitment. The foundation last year gave out $750,000 in scholarships, foundation scholarships. They also had some discretionary funding, that about $100,000 that they provided to admissions folks to be able to use to actually recruit students too. And it kind of depended on the student and the student need, how much they got. But I think the foundation will have some additional funding again this year that could potentially be used that way. Now, Mayor Martha? I can't even tell you that. I mean, they gave out $750,000. I think they gave out, I think that's, well, typically what the foundation does is decide, I'd have to ask Avery, but they typically decide as a foundation board, this is the percent of funding that we want to grant in scholarships. They decide that ahead of time. And so they probably decided ahead of time, this is the amount we're going to give, and that's what they gave out. So they do it based on how they believe, what they believe they have access to funding for. As we invest in college-wide technology, we've done a lot of different things here. Again, as far as recruiting and supporting students, we want to invest in artificial intelligence tools to provide increased access to information and to augment staff. Bill Young, if he's on, may have to explain this, or one of the other ones, but a lot of institutions are using bots now. Artificial intelligence, sort of robot kinds of things, so that when somebody, reaches out to an admissions counselor, they may not actually be talking to a person to start off with. They think they are, but that bot is answering their questions and giving them some information to start off with, and then we'll pass them off to another person. We don't have that yet, but there are institutions that are using, artificial intelligence tools like that. So we want to explore that software, that technology. We think might cost, obviously, $70,000 or more to embed. And so that's why we haven't done it at this point in time. We want to increase the usage of student life cycle tools with further implementation of Elution Recruit and Aviso. We have Aviso and Recruit already in place. Those have been purchased, and it's building those out, building out the usage of those. Those are tools, for instance, Aviso tells us faculty can pull up Aviso and you can see the student's schedule. You can see whether they're attending class. You can see whether they're doing okay and they're getting their assignments in. And so Aviso helps us identify very easily if students are in trouble, if we need to reach out to students, if we need to get their team of supporters around them to help them. Act-On, the next one, Act-On aligning with Recruit is again another tool that we have. And Act-On is one of those technology tools that helps us understand student interest at the very top. Before we get them down our funnel, it helps us understand at the very top what their interest is by how many times they've been on the website, what information they're asking for. Is this student really interested in Butler? And if they are, we're going to go after them and really recruit them. This student isn't so much interested, so we're not going to spend quite as much time on that student as we are on the student that's really, really interested. And Act-On helps kind of score those students' interest so that we can put those student names in front of our faculty that are phone calling and our folks in advising and admissions that are working hard to get those students to actually come to campus. And then with the COVID things, a lot of this is information that we're already, we've kept you apprised of. It's stuff that we're working on right now. Our implementation of guidelines and return to campus work, we really believe has been comprehensive. This week, we have 3 employees that are active COVID cases, and we have 4 students. And that's, compared to hundreds in other places. And so we really believe the work that we've done to this point has been positive, and it's going to continue. We do know desperately that we have some additional mental health issues that are really, really cropping up this year, more so than in years past, and we're not the only ones. And so we're seeking and trying to find additional mental health support, whether it's through partnerships with other institutions, whether it's trying to find adjunct faculty members that are trained as counselors that could give us some additional part-time hours to help our students. But we have significant mental health needs this year, as a lot of institutions do that haven't surfaced in the past. So something that we've got to address.
Dr. Kroll?
Yeah.
When there is an emergency on campus with a student suicidal or
Yep.
something like that, is it the social worker here on campus that is called first, or do we call?
Kind of depends on the situation. Oftentimes it's public safety that gets the call first. Sometimes it's the residence hall director. Sometimes it's the RA, but there's a team of people right away that, step into action. We've had some concerns in the last few weeks, and public safety is always very directly involved. And Nancy Ham, who's our counselor, is called right away. And they'll make a decision about whether and sometimes EMS is called, if they feel like they need to have EMS involved. And so they'll make a decision about whether the student needs to go to the hospital or whether they're okay to stay on campus. But there's a pretty comprehensive approach to it. So sometimes it's a friend that is the first person. So any thoughts or questions about those areas on ensuring student success? If we talk about investing in our employees' success.
I had a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed your.
Sorry, I was writing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On the first one, I've got a lot of people that prefer to be physically at class.
Uh-huh.
I know we can't now.
Uh-huh.
Like, for instance, my son's doing cooking. Culinary at home, he has to buy every ingredient himself.
Right.
So, not that we can right this second, but maybe some talk or discussion about, COVID proofing or making some areas where we can have, the most important class, not the most important, but the most important classes.
Yeah.
That we can still physically meet if we have to distance or wherever they are, whatever building, or
Yeah.
if the Educare building turns into it, or, the warehouse in Andover, if we can meet in there. More of that talk in the future if this
Yeah.
comes up again.
And some of it is accommodations that have had to have been made for faculty, so it's oftentimes a combination of circumstances,
Oh, yeah. We're just,
Yeah.
this is everybody's first experience.
I know,
But-
we're learning by the hour.
And I think the strategic enrollment plan,
Mhm.
that might be something we want to look at because the enrollment's just decline. And
Yeah, we can, I talked to Jessica, we kind of talked about that the other day and thought that might be a good board discussion item, is to have her come and
My
present.
gut reaction or feeling is like the dual credit programs that we can offer could really build up, attendance, because you're saving kids a couple years of their life possibly. And
Yep.
I don't know if we could tie some state funding to them that would go to the schools. I know that gets hairy trying to.
Well, we get state funding support because when they enroll in dual credit courses, they're college students. There are college students. And so we get state funding support for that.
Do we get any of their K-12 funding there?
No.
Because that's what I would like to
Segmented out.
see. It's like, that's pretty much tied to that student. We should.
Yeah.
We're taking over that part of their education. If they go completely dual
Ju-
credit.
Go talk to those folks at the state level for us about that, will
I'll
you?
send them an
Because
email. I mean,
There-
that should be,
It should be. And there's actually conversation now about just last week, joint meeting between Board of Regents and KSD, Department of Ed. There's conversation now about what they're calling the first 15 hours or the first 30 hours of trying to have high school juniors and seniors complete at least 15 hours or complete 30 hours. 15 hours would be easier, but and potentially have that funding go through K-12, and K-12 then would pay us to pay the
be a nice
colleges.
path
So,
to at least.
but it's legislated. So,
For sure.
yeah.
Okay, my only other thing is on the provide thing. I think that's where we wait 3 years to evaluate a program. It would be nice maybe to, at year and a half, 2 years in, look at them a little more closely.
We'll go back and look at that. I know that cycle was set because it's such a comprehensive review, but
Right?
All-
Like on the, like once we're getting ready to start the second year kids
Oh,
that
we'll-
want to do
we'll be reviewing it.
the 2 years, it'd be a nice time to look at it.
Yeah.
Instead
Just kind of a
waiting-
monitoring update.
Right.
Instead of waiting that 3 years to do it.
Yeah.
That's
If-
all the notes I have.
Okay, thanks. If we look at investing in our employees' success in this next section, this talks about how we want to create a culture that engages our employees and develops their full potential to influence students and community success. They have a touch on their students, and we always talk about, we need you folks to be learning and growing, because that's the expectation we have for our students. If you're going to help our students learn and grow, then you have to do the same thing, And so again, if we look at those priorities that are, kind of on the left-hand side, overarching, we want to maintain a competitive market position for compensation to attract and retain highly qualified professionals or employees. We want to promote shared participatory governance. We want to support a culture of innovation, excellence, and accountability through performance management and professional development. And then again, the COVID stuff at the bottom. So when we maintain a competitive market position, we completed a HR consultant study a couple of years ago. And that study provided market analysis for us. It provided comparative salary analysis for the area and with other institutions. It provided a lot of information, and that analysis helped Shelley and her team go back and look at all of the classifications of employees, where people were placed in those classifications, where they fell in the salary ranges. And what we discovered was that we had certain groups over the last couple of years. We've used some equity pay to increase some of those lower salaries, because they weren't even in the right salary range. They were below their salary range. And so we've used some equity funding and, looked at some different sectors of employees to, get them up to that
interrupt,
range where
yeah.
they need to be. So this marketing study is, again, kind of a continuing process, and it's going to have to be an ongoing process for us to remain, competitive in the fields that we're in. You'll see that we want to continue to plan to address internal equity and priority through our budgeting process. We had $190,000 in our budget for this coming year to be used for equity, and we pulled that out because we didn't do salary raises. All we did was, health insurance increases. But we can't forget that. We can't walk away from those discussions. We have to continue to focus on how we're going to support our employees in the best way that we can. The last couple of years, whatever salary increase we've given folks, we've set aside 0.5% of that to address equity issues. And so as we move into our budget discussions and our negotiations for this coming year, you'll hear us continue to talk about equity adjustments and salary hopefully salary changes as we, we'll see what the environment's like. As we promote shared and participatory governance, we want to review and revise our committee structure and reporting processes. We feel like this is a way that we can change some of the communication and the reporting internally, is by sort of restructuring how our committees report to each other and how we report up through our committees. And so this is something that we're going to work on. Last year, Shelley and I spent quite a bit of time in small groups doing Butler Talk. Lori and I spent time doing faculty forums. We did some college-wide Zoom meetings. I had student meetings each month on both campuses before we shut down for COVID. And so we want to continue those. Those are great ways to communicate in smaller groups. We usually, like with Butler Talk and with the faculty forums, we had very specific questions or discussion topics that we went in with so we could kind of gather some consistent information. I think this year some of those will probably focus very much on the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, probably, as we talk with both students and staff. We also want to utilize a pulse survey to identify employee satisfaction and needs. We haven't done one of those for a few years. Sometimes you can develop it internally, but sometimes they're better if you find an external source, one that's already developed that you can use. But we want to do an employee satisfaction survey. When we talk about supporting a culture of innovation, we want to support implementation and training of new performance management standards. We've implemented a new performance management system, Shelley did a year ago. And we use that performance management process for the first time this spring and summer for employee evaluations. We continued to hear, as you ask people do you like our evaluation process or not? Nobody liked it. Nobody liked it. And so that was one of the things that Shelley heard when she came in. That needs to be changed. And so she and her team have changed it. We purchased some software and a new platform, and lots of positive response this year as we've used it for the first time, because it gives us an opportunity to really have the right kind of conversations with our employees and really not only look at setting goals, but look at, their day-to-day work and what kind of goals and how we can help them grow as employees and be better employees. We'll use that at mid-year. Again, we always do a mid-year checkup. And so we're just starting into that, but we've had some really positive feedback about that. Laura, we want to continue to implement professional development training opportunities for staff. Laura started last year in the fall, right? Working with just a key group of administrative assistants, a small group. She decided it was best to start off with a small group. That was one of the goals that she and I set together for her, and she had great success with that. Lots of opportunity for some of the administrative assistants on campus to learn from each other, support each other, cross-train each other. And the hope is that we can expand that and pull in additional people now. We have such a robust faculty development process. Laura, because she's married to Mark, who's the director of faculty development, there's some great opportunities to use some of those same kinds of things for staff development. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about. Laura's done a really great job with that.
How many AAs are there?
Yeah.
43, and that
Yeah.
covers Andover County.
Everywhere. Yeah. And then the COVID things, there's not a lot of difference here with the COVID processes from the students, except that we want to, with employees, we developed guidelines for identifying accommodations. And actually, I guess with students now, we've had some students that have requested remote learning very specifically for a lot of different reasons. Lori's been working with them, but there was a pretty comprehensive process from the very beginning with Shelley in HR and Teresa Eastman in Disability Services to help our employees and to identify, who needed health accommodations, who, needed some sort of accommodation because their children now are home and not in school, and they're trying to learn at home, and they're not able to be at work every single day, from 8 to 5 because they've got little kids at home, that they have to help in school. So they worked really hard to make those changes for folks for fall, and they're continuing now to work through some of the ones for spring already, just kind of in anticipation. So thoughts about the employees section or ideas that you have?
Is there any kind of an expectation for faculty in terms of kind of student recruitment or working with marketing to try to, whether it's the new construction program, whether it's programs that have went away where faculty could have been maybe more involved or could be involved with helping make sure that in 18 months or 3 years that the construction program is alive and viable versus
just letting it somebody else
do what it does, and in 3 years thinking, all right, well.
We have a admissions and advising have a team, and this is just one example, but have a team of lead faculty that they will give lists to each week that they will call and follow up with students. But there are a lot of faculty that are very directly involved in actually going out and recruiting students. That the Kansas CACRO has changed a lot of the guidelines for recruiting now that limit your ability to just be in schools all the time and, spend extra time there and, take faculty with you or take students with you. Faculty can go into classrooms and teach and, do those kinds of things. But we have a large number of faculty that very specifically are involved in recruiting. But one of the things that we're talking about that Lori and the deans are talking about is setting very specific program goals, enrollment goals for the different programs. And, with a focus that, you need to have this number of students and you need to be able to recruit this number of new students, and it's going to vary from program to program.
Right.
But, you have some, Terry Sater would say, how am I going to go out and recruit somebody to join the, philosophy, get a philosophy degree
Well,
or
and I
something like
understand
that. So
but
it's
more-
different.
Some of the more
Yeah.
technical stuff,
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
opportunities to.
So
Get a
it
sign
kind of
and
varies
spin it
from.
outside of Walmart.
What's that?
You could spin a sign outside of Walmart.
Terry could. Terry.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, I'll tell him that you offered that as an idea. He'll be glad to hear that. But that's a good example because he's talked about that. Yeah. How am I going to recruit somebody?
Is the access to schools, is that a COVID thing or is that something where they've just tried to?
It has been COVID, but it's stuff that's changed through CACRO.
CACRO really tries to govern the use of students specifically. Going into high school because high schools really don't want all of those people coming to school. So, but it's more of a profession looking at the profession, professional people. Somebody else going in there all of the time. So it's kind of government type of thing.
What's CAPRO?
Kansas Association of Collegiate Registrars.
I don't know how you guys remember all those.
I
It's
know.
I think CACRO is on your acronym list, maybe
I know,
that
I-
we gave you. Was it,
Uh,
Laura? Did you
would-
put CACRO on there?
Would Butler County High School be more apt to allow us in there?
Well, I
Since
think,
we're-
yeah, I mean, and with our concurrent classes, we're in those high schools all the time.
Yeah.
But we're in this for enrollment for those, into those kinds of classes, but our admission team will go out. But the other thing that happens in high schools is they don't allow college admission people to come in. When I was in admission, I would schedule 3 high schools a day. I could 9 till 10 o'clock in the morning to visit with high school kids and they pull them out of class.
Yeah.
Now you can set up a table during the lunch hour, and if the students stop by and see you, they do. Guess how many stop by?
0.
So,
Unless you're giving it a free something away, right?
well, but you, after it is. they
They've
can't
limited
give
that.
out freebies to students, but as an high school. Again, they're trying to professionalize.
Sure.
The recruitment to stop that.
So with the majority of our dual credit classes, do they take place physically in the high schools now?
Right.
Okay. That's why
what
they
we do.
wouldn't want to share any funds because they're
It would
They're
hurt the
doing them
FTE
on
for the-
site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would hurt the public schools FTE, so that's not gonna happen.
right.
Yeah.
But if it's something where they came, like the construction program, they'd obviously.
Yeah, they take care of that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Be nice to delineate that somehow in the law. It's like, you guys want to, you can drive, you got a driver's license. It'd be cool to drive to college and go to college 18 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week sitting at school
Well,
in high school.
that's one of the benefits that we have with our early college academies. Those students are full-time college students. I mean, they're still in a location lots of times,
Mhm.
like in Rose Hill. It's
Right,
the wing of the Rose Hill High School, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
When we talk about contributing to our communities, again, on the left-hand side, we want to strengthen partnerships and engagement with high schools, business industries, civic organizations to support 21st century drivers. We want to engage community members and college stakeholders through strategic communication and visioning, provide return on investment for student and taxpayer resources committed to the college, and then focus resources and support innovation to position Butler in a competitive market. And so as we look at some of these, strengthening the partnerships at the very bottom of the page. We want to enhance internship opportunities through collaborative work between student services and academics. We have right now in our degree programs, we have 12 degree programs where they have required internships. We had 5 where they were electives, but they just have added 6 more programs have added internships as electives, and they're working on a couple of more in pre-med and biology, I think, for internships. So there's a significant opportunity there. We want to create a strengthened presence of the college and communities through expanded community service initiatives. This one, kind of may be a little bit more difficult to do because of the COVID thing, but typically in the spring, we always do a Grizzly Give Back Days where we have students out in the community. We have individual offices and groups of people that are taking, as a group, going out into the community to do community service, but we want to try and expand those opportunities. And I think even now, maybe with COVID, there's a greater need. And so I think there's a greater opportunity for us to be engaged that way. We want to implement an electronic repository for all the articulation agreements. We have them all, but we need a front-facing, web-based repository where they're easy to access and people could go and look at them. These are the agreements that identify what courses we have transfer to K-State in this degree program or whatever. We want to develop and provide new CEU training opportunities. Again, we be opportunities in nursing and in health sciences and in IT and in education. And that's one of the ways that we can reach out within the communities and support our communities through CEUs, because then our teachers or our healthcare professionals can get those continuing education credits that they need, and they don't have to travel maybe to Topeka or to Kansas City or wherever. So looking at those opportunities. And then we want to continue to develop strategic partnerships and degree pathways with 4-year transfer institutions that include an identified student cost for completion. So as an example, Newman has a new president, and so we have to re-engage these conversations now that Dr. Jager is there. But prior to her leaving, Lori was in conversation with their academic dean or VP is gone as well, but starting to have some conversations about how can we create a pathway for Butler students who want to transfer to Newman to finish a degree in pre-med or something like that. How can we create a package for those students so when they start at Butler, they know exactly what classes they're taking here, what they're going to transfer to Newman and take there, and what it's going to cost them from start to finish. Can we put a cost package together for them and a scholarship package together for them that makes sense, so they know right when they start, here's what it's going to cost me. So that kind of relates to some of that conversation. There are great opportunities to do those kinds of things. There are also continuing opportunities, of course, with all of the four-year partners to continue to strengthen program-to-program articulations and make sure that we provide opportunities for dual advising. So for instance, if a student starts at Butler and they know that they want to eventually transfer to Wichita State in engineering, that we've got our advisor talking to the Wichita State engineering advisors, and that students engaged on both ends from the very beginning, so that again, they're taking the right courses and that they, can transfer on. When we talk about engaging community members and college stakeholders through strategic communication and visioning, we want to initiate and engage supporters in direct conversation and communication through individual community leaders, chambers, school boards, city commissions, community conversations. Laura has gone through, we'll have to update it, but I asked her to start to put together a schedule for me of when all the school boards meet, what night of the week they meet, when do the city commissions meet, the county commission meetings, all of those kinds of things. So we can start to, maybe it's just to be on their agenda for a few minutes, to be there and present a college update and to provide information to them. So, and it kind of goes along with the next one as well, present college information reports to service area stakeholders. So again, it's, having those conversations with the folks in Council Grove and Marion, and, how do we as a service area partner or service area landowner or homeowner, how do we make sure that they know the opportunities that Butler provides, and how do we partner together to support each other, whether it's, as Shelby's talked about, trying to get them to commit some additional dollars to support the college. Those conversations all have to start, face to face with the economic development directors and the superintendents and those folks. And then as part of the conversation, again, listening and paying attention to the mill levy and the tax concerns, and providing, information to folks, put information in their hands that we can talk about, that helps explain, what our mill levy is, how it's changed, all of those kinds of things. So that's an obligation that we have to get, information out there. We also want to make sure that, like with mill levy and the data that we're putting out, developing a new web page that will have community information on it, that will have a lot of this stuff embedded in it. So people could even go to the college website and look at it as well.
Just in general, the community tax data, good golly, it's so hard to even understand what that page means when you get there. It's just a bunch of
Like the
gobbledygook.
city stuff?
No, like the property taxes in
Oh.
general from Butler County.
Yeah.
It's just, here's all these numbers, and you're like, okay.
So when
No.
we put our information out there, we'll highlight,
Yeah.
here, you can sort of
Or
ignore
this
the
what
rest
this
of the stuff,
mean,
but
yeah.
here's what you need to know. The return on the investment for student and taxpayer resources committed to the college. We've gone through and looked at and put together a list of the civic organizations and the different boards and the nonprofits, and looked at who we have as board members or engaged going to those meetings, so that we understand in a little bit more comprehensive way, because it's hard to keep track of all that. We've got so many people involved in so many different things, but it gives us an idea of who's involved where, how can we make sure that they're communicating information and needs back to us, and who do we need to get engaged in some other key areas that maybe we don't have folks engaged in. So again, I think it broadens that conversation and the communication and the opportunity to share resources and share information back and forth. We're going to continue to distribute the quarterly newsletters that talk about different college kinds of commitments and successes, student testimonials. Typically do those about 4 times a year, and those go to every address in Butler County, but they're also available electronically and on the website too. EMSI research market study was done, and we'll embed that market research information into the data and onto the website. There's also discussion at the state level now about the community colleges putting together system economic impact. So each of the individual community colleges will have some internal economic information that they will be able to provide. And we're going to create our, we've got a team of IR folks from the community colleges across the system that are going to compile over time a report that shows the economic impact of the community colleges across the state of Kansas as an entire
That
system.
would be great.
It is, because it's critical information when we're the system that enrolls the largest number of students, when our graduates and completers are the ones that stay in the state in the highest percentages, you know, and so it's and I think also important from the standpoint of, again, we've got 18 counties that are providing the tax base for 19 community colleges, and so maybe it broadens the conversation about, you know, can the state somehow provide additional support for the two-year system in a different way and maybe lessen the tax burden for the 18 counties taxpayers. I don't know, you know, but
You know, Heather told us in our meeting a couple Saturdays ago that universities have found out that their graduates are leaving the state.
Oh.
But community college graduates stay in the state.
yeah,
And they were planning some
Yeah.
advertisement around that.
yeah. Focus resources and support innovation to position Butler in a competitive market. Again, we need to, you know, pay attention to salary increases and equity in our annual budgeting process. And then there are certainly opportunities from a foundation perspective to identify and strategically align foundation donor support to help with college innovation, to help with college advocacy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all with dollars and cents. Sometimes it's just, again, partnerships and support. Maybe there's a college stakeholder that's engaged with Butler through the foundation that needs a student intern, or, you know, wants to be directly involved in community conversations about the college, or has had a great, you know, experience at the college and is willing to, you know, tell other folks about it. So there's great opportunity for the foundation then to be, again, engaged in the day-to-day work that we do. So thoughts about the community conversations here and how we contribute to our communities.
Is there any way on the, like on the tax awareness stuff? Shelby made a point that, you know, you get on the website, there's a lot of, it's just hard to figure out how much you're actually paying to the college.
Right.
Is there a way we can put on there an example of, you know what, if you have
Yep.
$100,000 house and the mill levy goes up or down 1
Yep.
mil, here's the dollars.
Yep,
that
it's easy to
impacts. So
do.
people understand that, because I don't think a lot of people really do what that impact is on an average home
Yep.
county.
Some of the information that we've sent out in the past shows that very specifically.
Okay.
That if you have a $100,000 home, you know, here's what the cost, here's what 1 mil costs. So, yep, it's easy to do. And I think that information makes more sense lots of times. You know, if I know that if you know, a mill levy goes up, you know, 1 mil for the college, here's how many extra dollars I'm going to pay, you know, or if it goes down, here's the dollars that I'm going to save. And you divide that out. Oftentimes you divide that out, you know, what's the cost per day? And it's not a huge expense you know, for most average homeowners and stuff. So,
I also like the financial picture of where, you know, how much each student brings into our community.
that's
What is
part
it?
of that economic impact information.
What is it now?
Well, are you talking about,
In El Dorado, what do the students,
I don't know in El Dorado. I know ESOM did some calculations for the county. I'll have to
Yeah.
look for that document, but see, that's the kind of information that we want to be able to get from all the community colleges to compile, so that there's a broader picture of system economic impact. As we look at advancing institutional effectiveness, we want to hold ourselves accountable to deliver on our promised value, and that can mean lots of different things. So at the very bottom of the page, then, we want to proactively address a sustainable diversity, equity, and inclusion culture. We felt like there were some very specific opportunities this year to broaden and strengthen those conversations in a really deliberate way. We want to address strategic needs through integrated planning, program review, and budgeting. We want to continue to deploy and refine business intelligence platforms, and we want to secure dedicated funds for enterprise resource planning, maintenance, and associated operational systems. And so that first one, if you look at the proactively address sustainable diversity, equity, and inclusion culture, we want to engage students and staff in very direct conversations about understanding their barriers and needs. We have an inclusion council already on campus that's been in place for a few years now. The board a few years ago approved a statement of inclusion. And I'm actually meeting with Inclusion Council this week to talk about how to move forward with this. And I'm really hopeful that Inclusion Council will take on some of these opportunities to sit down and talk with students and staff and really have some good conversation and help us understand what we need to change and how we need to do things differently. We want to expand our direct training surrounding diversity, equity, inclusion. And again, Inclusion Council is going to help us figure that out. We want to be very mindful of how we advertise and how we, what are our interview questions? What kinds of things do our interview questions ask when we're interviewing people? What's the makeup of our interview committees? It's easy for us to pick specific people. These people report, this person that we're going to interview is going to report to these people. And so, sometimes you pick people based on that. But, what do the folks sitting around the table look like? And what are their experiences? And what are their perspectives? And so, again, trying to be really, really intentional about changing some of the internal things that we do. And with hopefully a goal that we would develop potentially a very specific and separate strategic plan for diversity and equity and inclusion over the next year. And again, I hope Inclusion Council will take the lead on that. We've been actively sponsoring for the last, 10 or 12 years, Advance Kansas, which is a leadership, a diversity leadership training. And so we already have some things in place that Butler's known for related to diversity and inclusion, but that doesn't mean that there aren't significant opportunities for us to do things in a much better and broader way. So we felt like this was really an important piece of our strategic plan moving forward. Sure. Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's unreal.
Yeah. Lots of fast food. Huh.
Yes, and Walmart.
And yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
gasoline.
Gasoline. Yep. Probably might be a little beer in there somewhere.
Maybe a
I
little.
probably shouldn't say that
They're
with my
underage.
microphone on, but
A lot of them are
Um,
underage. No.
if we
No.
address strategic needs through integrated planning, program review, and budgeting, we of course want to adhere to our annual strategic planning and budgeting calendar. Pretty well identifies the timeline, and a piece of that is that every month, you have updates for the performance indicators in the board book. So we're constantly giving you updates on some of these different indicators each month, and we'll continue to do that. But the budgeting timeline identifies when we're talking about different things at exec council and when our budget updates to the board are and when this is due and when that's due. We want to begin comprehensive preparation for our Higher Learning Commission visit. That's going to be a few years out. That's not something that you 2 months ahead of time kick into gear for. It's a massive undertaking, and so we'll start to sit down with Phil and probably put together a task force and identify a timeline for, what are the things that we need to do and what's it look like to progress through. And again, one of the things that we're already starting is policy review. That's a piece of getting ready for that visit. So we're going to be in good shape by the time they come to visit. We need to develop a long-term financial plan to address deferred maintenance and continued college innovation. We're going to have some internal conversations about some of the deferred maintenance and some of those critical needs first, and then we'll engage the capital projects team and a broader team. But we need to kind of just internally even get our hands around. We've got probably, we've got about $26 million, I think, in deferred maintenance, which seems really staggering, but it's not nearly as bad as some institutions, some universities. We took care of about $7 million of that 5 years ago when we replaced every roof on campus after that hailstorm. And some of the buildings are old enough, and through our master plan, we've identified we're not going to put any money into them. They aren't worth the money that you would, they aren't worth sinking significant amounts of money into because of their age and because of their structure or whatever. But that doesn't mean that we aren't continuing to use them.
Which buildings are those?
Well, one of the buildings right now is the is the 300 building that has art and welding in it. That building is one that has a higher, I think they call it CFI, which identifies that you're kind of past that point where money that you invest in that building, is a return on your investment. That building needs a new heating and air conditioning system. We've had some mold problems in there and some ventilation problems, and it really needs that building was on tap to have that system replaced this spring, but with COVID, we didn't get it done. So, that was one of the buildings in the master plan that was identified for future, we'll raise that building, and then if we need a new academic space, you'd create new academic space. So, that would be a building that we want to question, how much money we put into it. We're still teaching classes out of it, still using it, but those are the kinds of things that, that we need to talk about kind of internally and then bring those conversations to capital projects team.
Do these flat roofs bring us problems?
Yeah, any flat roof does. But, and again, it's a question for Kent or Lynn or Ireland. I think when they did roof replacement, they, all of those roofs now, typically with flat roofs, you try and build some sort of a slope, onto them. But yeah, they're all pretty much flat roofs. So we want to begin implementation of Ethos Analytics during our next year. This is a cost thing. Again, we would have engineering costs. And again, this is to build out technology and opportunities for developing databases and developing reporting opportunities, and again, being able to utilize the data that we have in our system in different ways and for different purposes. It was a cost. We had this in last year in our strategic plan, and it was a cost that we just felt like we couldn't spend the money. And we've left it in this year, understanding that, that cost hasn't gone away. But it's one of those things that we hope at some point in time would be able to do, because it creates innovation for us and understanding and data that will help us make decisions. We want to try to allocate a set amount of annual dollars for strategic initiatives and needs. If we can, set aside certain dollars, a certain amount of dollars each year that we can accumulate and acquire for innovative needs or innovative programming or something like that. And then we want to review and update the student fee structure. This process is already happening. Just from a technology perspective, we know that we've spent a lot of money on technology over the past couple of years, but those technology costs are continuing to go up, and they will. They're just going to continue to increase. And so every student's using technology. It used to be just the online students, but that's not the case anymore. Every single student's using technology. So we're looking at a complete revision of our fee structure that will support those technology costs in a different way. And that's information that then will come to you guys in the spring, in February and March. March is typically when we make the decisions on tuition and fees, but that information will be in front of you for sure in February, if not before, for just discussion and consideration. But just looking at realigning that fee structure. There's some institutions that are charging, a couple of $100 for just technology fees. And when a lot of institutions went remote, or even this fall, when classes at the last minute switched from face-to-face to remote, they imposed online fees or technology fees to students so that weeks before, in the weeks before classes started, all of a sudden they have hundreds of dollars in additional technology fees because their classes have been switched from face-to-face to remote or online. We didn't do that. So what are your thoughts about advancing institutional effectiveness? Any glaring gaps at all from anybody?
Very nice.
Well, and we'll continue to finish this out. We'll put some more concrete timelines on some of these things, so there's an end date or specific information, like for instance, maybe on the internship opportunities. Here's the additional internships that we want to commit ourselves to, or the strategic partnerships with other institutions. We want at least 2 new partnerships that will help our students identify from start to finish what their program package and program costs are going to be. So we'll continue to work on that a little bit.
Do you ever make the goals measurable?
Oh yeah, we do. Not, and that's a piece that's missing, in here. And so that would be what we would do for some of these is go through and, sorry, with the number of internships, for instance, those kinds of things are, pretty identifiable when we, I'm just looking, I'm trying to find one where it's just kind of ongoing and implementing an electronic repository for all the articulation agreements. That's measurable just in itself. We just need to develop that repository. So some of them are pretty specific. Some of them are a little bit more, kind of nebulous and ongoing. And again, a lot of these are things that are already embedded in our processes, man hours, time, people. Those are things that, because they're embedded in our ongoing processes, it's hard to identify a cost associated with them. If you're buying software or something like that, or engineering costs, you can identify those. But from a cost perspective, a lot of these, it's hard to know what it's going to cost because it's time and people and committees meeting and stuff like that. So,
Do we have a deferred maintenance plan this time?
yeah, when we did the campus master plan a couple of years ago, we had not had a comprehensive assessment of deferred maintenance, but they did it at that time before we did the campus master plan. I'll put that on SharePoint because it's a massive document.
Has it been updated the last 2 years?
No, because it's expensive. I mean, we hired an outside firm to come do it for us, and so we, as part of our planning process, and so we could look at it and see what if there are updates that are needed. It would be, we'd have to bring in somebody from the outside probably to help us with it, but but I can post that to SharePoint. You can't email it because it's way too big, too many pictures, too many numbers and stuff.
And I would say as a board too, if there's anything that we think of later or whenever that we want to put on here and talk about too, just overarching or something specific, you know.
Maybe we can start a folder on SharePoint to do that in, if you could have your IT person. do that.
Well, if you've got a SharePoint folder, you
But
can,
a folder
folder.
that everyone can access.
well, everybody can access the folders that are there now.
Right.
Yeah.
But is there one specifically for what Shelby
For
was
the
just
master
talking
plan?
about? No, that we
Oh.
can literally input ideas to.
Oh, I can, you know,
Or
I
we
can,
could just send
I
out
can
an email or
develop,
whatever.
I can we can put a folder on there and put a Word document in there and title it ideas, and you
Yeah.
guys can start adding to it if you want to.
Whatever happened with your idea about the money for the stadium or something? Did anything come of that?
The tax credits,
Oh, yeah. We
I
were
still
gonna-
don't agree with that.
COVID money for the
Yeah.
stadium
I still
Yeah.
don't agree.
because of lost revenue and
What if you would email me whoever I would contact to bug them about K-12 money? I would send an email off.
That would be your legislators.
Well, I've got
that's where it
local,
would start.
just state and local.
That's where it would start, Shelby.
I tell you what, if you can figure out community college funding at the state level, you go for it.
I-
It's-
I can't figure out any government funding at any level, so.
It's so.
We're at the
complicated.
lowest step of government funding
Because
here.
see, it would eventually have to flow through, it'd have to flow through K-12 education.
Oh, for sure.
You know. I
But
mean,
like you were talking earlier, if we have state colleges, not all, but a lot of kids leave versus community colleges, can you tie that to some funds? Like, hey, here's 18 colleges, 19 communities, whatever, that benefit the state.
I'll tell you this, Board of Regents has the most power. And fortunately, we're not academic.
Well, we are. I mean,
Well-
we're coordinated. They coordinate us. They govern the university. So
Coordinate.
they still,
Let us have
they
a
still
little
tell
side
us
at the table,
what
but
we
that's
need to
about
do.
it.
But I would think a lot of this too, just teacher pay and all that, we've got to get, more butts in chairs.
I'm going to ask any of the folks that are on Zoom, ESOM, any of you folks have any things that we sort of left out of the conversation that are important closing points here as we finish up? I want to be respectful of time, and I think we said 5 to 7, so I want to kind of keep that as a target.
Esam, I miss you.
You're muted,
I
Nissan.
need to hear those words. Unmute yourself.
I missed you too, and
Thank
today,
you.
as you can see, I'm not wearing my little handkerchief.
I know,
And
and I want that hanky in that pocket.
once it opens up in fall, yeah.
Anything from anybody else?
I think you did a great job summarizing it, Dr. Kroll, and happy to share more information as you discussed about the strategic plan at another, or the enrollment management plan at another time.
Thanks, Jessica.
Kim.
Yes,
Um,
Lance
part
has a
of-
question here.
Part of the longer term financial plan for the building and stuff, is there a conversation about the property insurance costs associated with that and just how those the last few years have continued to, on the property insurance? Because that
So,
all ties into the long-term viability of
yeah.
buildings ultimately.
I think that would have to be part of the conversation as we're talking about deferred maintenance and projects and things like that. What are the insurance costs associated with, the physical space of this, this building. So I think that's, exactly part of that conversation. And
And
You
once
know, our
make
property
those
insurance-
improvements, once you make those, improvements, there'll be an escalation.
sure, yeah.
Would we ever? Where's that
You may have to
300
speak into
building?
your microphone a little bit. There you go.
Where's the 300 building in relation to the library?
It's right behind the library building.
Okay, right behind it.
Yeah.
So is, what's it called? Is it the Walburn building? Is
Uh-huh.
it
That's the 900 building.
Is that, how's it doing
Um,
on longevity?
It's, I'd have to pull
Yeah, I
the
just
document
wondered.
out and look. It's one of the older buildings.
Uh-huh.
We actually, in the master plan, identified that if we fundraised and built a new Fine Arts and Performing Arts Center, that Walburn building would go away, and there'd be additional administrative space that would, have to be created, but that Performing Arts Center would be right in the center of campus.
Yeah,
But
that'd be neat.
yeah,
Mm.
it's very functional, still being used from front to back. Every inch of it's being used.
So how many buildings were the original campus? 5?
Oh, gosh, 6, weren't there, Bill?
6?
6 original buildings? Do we have?
Well, there's more than that, but 16,
Oh.
20,000.
Wow.
Still using them all.
Uh-huh.
Haven't knocked down anything. So. Yeah, I know.
Which one's the 11?
West Hall,
Oh, okay.
cement block building.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Oh,
thank you for your time.
you bet.
I know
is
this
very interesting.
section's out an additional couple of hours during the week for you, but appreciate your comments. I think Laura's got a salad for you or something for you to take with you to eat.
And I,
And I just want to say thanks.
I am just trying to find those insurance policies.